Okay, so for the last section in this chapter, we're going to be looking at trends that exist when looking at the periodic table. There's a few that you should be aware of. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is atomic radius. So atomic radius, the definition of what we mean when we say that, is essentially the size of the atom is from the nucleus itself to the last valence electron or valence orbital. So essentially we're talking about how large the atom is, right? So if we have an atom that's this size versus something that is this size, right? We can see that the radius is larger on the one on the right in comparison to the one on the left. So the trend that exists on the periodic table is that as you move from left to right in a row, or I should say in a period, so going from left to right, the radius of an atom decreases. So meaning as you go across a period, the atom gets smaller and smaller. We'll talk about why that is in a second. As you go down a group, so down a column on the periodic table, the radius of an atom will increase. It gets larger and larger, okay? So essentially, the reason why this happens, and actually this is just a nice little table to show you, it's not every single element on the periodic table, but just enough so you can see the general trend. So as you see going from left to right, the atom is getting smaller and smaller. As you go down, and it doesn't matter which column you choose, the atom is getting larger and larger. So let's go back and talk about the reason for this. Now, all of the trends that we're going to be looking at have a similar reasoning. So the reason why it's either increasing or decreasing will be kind of the same. So it's important to make sure you have a good understanding of this. So as you go from left to right, what's happening is the nuclear charge of the atom is increasing. So what does that mean? The nucleus of the atom is getting more and more positively charged. And that makes sense because if you're going to the right, you're going to be adding in more more protons and neutrons, but neutrons don't affect the charge. But as you go, let's say from lithium to beryllium, beryllium has one additional proton in comparison to lithium. As you go from beryllium to boron, there's another extra proton, right? The atomic number increases as you're going from left to right. So what happens is the positive nucleus ends up attracting the electrons more. The higher this, and we call this the effective nuclear charge. Essentially, the more positive that nucleus is, the more of an attraction it has for the electrons that are surrounding it. So what happens is the atom essentially pulls tighter and tighter to those electrons because the nucleus is more and more positive, and we know opposites attract, right? So we have an increased effective nuclear charge, and the protons have a stronger pull on the electrons. Okay, so the reason why as you go down a group, the radius is increasing, so this would kind of make sense naturally. You're adding in more orbitals of electrons, right? So as you go down a group, each level has an additional energy level, right? So here we have energy level number 1, energy level number 2. Sodium has now energy level number 3, energy level number 4, etc., etc. So you just have more and more electrons that are occupying the space around the nucleus. So it's going to take up more and more space. The volume of the atom is going to get larger. So just naturally that occurs. Now another point is that we have something that happens called electron shielding. Okay, so what that means is essentially that the more electrons you have in between the nucleus and the outermost electron, what happens is the electrons will begin to repel each other. So you have to imagine if you have more and more orbitals that are filled with electrons that are kind of blocking the pathway to the nucleus, there is a repelling that's occurring. So as they repel each other, the atom naturally will expand and become larger. That way they occupy, I guess I should say, that way they're further apart from one another. So that's called a shielding effect. So each row on the periodic table adds a shell or energy level to the atom, which causes an increase in electron repulsion. So that term, that electron repulsion, the proper terminology for that is that it's creating a shielding effect. So meaning the more electrons that are there, the more repelling that's happening, the more the atom will essentially become larger. So going across a period, you have a pull on the attraction for the nucleus because the nucleus is more positive. But as you add on more energy levels, you're adding on to the repulsion of electrons. So in general, so we'll kind of have a summary chart at the end of each trend here. So in general, when you go across a row or a period, the atomic radius becomes smaller. And as you go down a group, it becomes larger. Okay, so now we're going to look at ions. Remember that ions is after an atom has either gained or lost electrons. So first of all, cations, if you recall, is a term for positive charges, and metals tend to be cations. Anions are negatively charged, and the non-metal atoms become anions. Now, when a metal or when something becomes a positive charge, what happens is that atom becomes now a smaller ion. So, and that kind of makes sense. Let's say you have something with 3 electrons. If we lose that last electron on the outside, the ion is going to be smaller because you've now lost that energy level, right? So it's become smaller. Now for negative charges, the atom, when it becomes an ion, actually becomes larger. And the reason for that is because you're adding in more negative charges. So what happens is it basically increases that shielding effect. You have more electrons that are there that are now repelling each other. So cations are smaller than the original atom that they were, and anions are larger. They are larger than the original atom that they were. So remember, the whole purpose for why do atoms make ions is actually for stability. So it's either to lose electrons to have a stable octet or to gain electrons to become a stable octet. Once we start chapter 2, we will review ionic compounds again, but essentially it's either going to lose or gain electrons in order to have its valence shell be completely full. So sometimes we say we want the valence shell to mimic what a noble gas is. And actually there's a term for that. It's called isoelectronic. So when you have an ion, ions are isoelectronic to a noble gas. So meaning they have the same number of valence electrons, right? So it has a full valence shell. So here are some examples of ions. So if you were to compare the sodium ion to a sodium atom, the sodium ion is smaller. So all of the metals that are positively charged, the cations, they become smaller if you compare them to the original atoms. And the negative ions are actually larger. And actually, I want you to notice something. If you have a larger, like the more electrons that you lose, the smaller that atom will get, right? The reason why is because you now have less negative charges, so the positive nucleus can actually pull them in tighter. There is less electron shielding happening. Whereas when you add in one electron and then you add in a second electron, notice all of the negative 2s are larger compared to the negative 1s. And this is because you have more of that shielding effect happening, right? So you have an additional repulsion that is occurring within that ion. Okay, so we talked about atom radius and we talked about what happens when atoms become ions. we now have a term called ionization energy. So ionization energy is the energy required to remove an electron from an atom. So when we want to take away an electron, so let's say we want sodium to become sodium positive 1. In order to take away that 1 electron, it takes energy for that to happen. It just doesn't happen on its own. So the more energy that it takes to do this, the more difficult it becomes. So as you, the smaller the amount of energy, the easier it is to remove an electron, right? So it's like, think of it as, let's say you had to pick up a dumbbell, okay? So if something was relatively easy to pick up, maybe it's only a 2-pound weight, right? It's a very low weight level. But if you had a 25-pound dumbbell, that would be much more difficult because it's going to take more energy for you to pick it up. So typically, the lower this energy is, the easier it is to remove an electron. So the higher this energy, the harder it is to remove an electron. So the trend on the periodic table is very similar to the reasonings we've looked at already. So as you go across a period, the amount of energy needed to remove an electron becomes higher and higher. So meaning it becomes harder and harder to remove an electron. As you go down a group, the energy needed to remove an electron becomes less and less. So it becomes actually easier and easier. So the reason for that, if we go back to this picture where we have our atoms, has to do with the same thing we've been looking at before. So let's just clear this off. Okay, so if we were to look at this and say, well, I want to remove an electron from lithium, and then I want to remove an electron from oxygen. Because oxygen's electrons are being held more tightly to the nucleus, it's going to be harder to remove an electron from oxygen because they are attracted to the nucleus. The less of an attraction that the electrons have, the easier it is to remove. So you have to imagine, as you move to the right, the electrons are being held on tighter and tighter because of that nuclear charge. So it's going to become harder and harder to remove an electron. Going down a group, the electrons have a looser attraction because of the electron shielding that's in its path. So remember, all of those electrons are repelling one another. So it actually becomes easier to remove an electron if it's farther away from the nucleus. So if I look at magnesium compared to barium, it's going to be much easier to remove an electron from barium than it would magnesium, simply because the distance from the nucleus is further. Think of the nucleus as a magnet, right? The tighter or the stronger that nucleus is holding on to those electrons, the harder it would be to pull them away from that nucleus. So in general, when we're talking about ionization energy, you have to think, okay, well, is that atom holding on to the electrons tightly or not? The tighter the hold, because of the nucleus, the harder it's going to be to remove electrons. So, let's talk about, well, what happens if we wanted to remove 2 electrons? So when we say the second electron, it's a different amount of energy. So it's important to note every atom has a different amount of energy needed, and every electron that you want to remove has a different amount of energy. So if I want to take away 1 electron from the atom, it's called the first ionization energy. If I want to take away the second electron, so let's say this would be if I want to make it a positive 1, if I want to make it a positive 2 charge, that means now I'm removing the second electron. Same thing, as you can imagine, if we're going to take away a third one, make it a +3, it would be the third ionization energy. So the first ionization energy refers to the energy required to remove the most weakly held electron from the neutral atom, which is always in the valence shell. So anytime you are removing electrons we are always discussing the valence shell. You're never going to remove the ones on the inner orbitals.